Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Eleni. I'm a first year dental student, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about my notes. How I take my notes, what I use to take my notes, and all of those things. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so first I want to talk to you guys about what I use to take my notes. So I actually started the year taking my notes on paper, and I'll actually show you guys because I have this entire binder still of all of my notes. And basically what I would do is I go to the lecture and I'll take notes on what the lecturer says on the PowerPoint. And then after class later that day, I'll go home and I write a page or a page and a half on what the lecture was about. So this is what some of my notes look like, and I basically would just write the main topics of the PowerPoint and kind of just summarize it in an easy way so that it's easier to review later on. And I like to use colors and make it really pretty because that for me helps me out a lot because I'm a very visual person. So making it pretty and colorful helps me study and makes me want to study. So by making like these little graphs and these little tables, it's easier for me to visualize what I'm supposed to learn. So this is just something that really helped me out. And just the action of writing everything down kind of slows down everything for me and helps me learn what is going on. So by taking more time to write everything down, it's really helping me figure out what's going on and really helping me to memorize and learn the material. So this is some of my notes from the fall, and I just make it really pretty and use lots of colors, and this is basically how I was doing my notes from the lectures. So I also even had a separate notebook that I did all of my anatomy notes in, and I just drew everything out and I would print things out, and this is how I would take my notes for anatomy. So I'm really proud of these notes, and I took a lot of time into them, and it really helped me for anatomy because I was just drawing everything out, and I would even print out the pictures and like label them. So doing this for anatomy really helped me, and I liked keeping it in this separate notebook because I had everything all together. So yeah, I would just print out some of the pictures that obviously I couldn't draw, and then I would draw certain things that I felt like I could draw. And as you can see, I used lots of different colors just because I'm a very visual person. So I like having the different colors and making it prettier, because when something's like really nicely organized and looks very pretty, it just makes me more motivated to study. So like something like this, drawing it out really helps me to learn it. And then later on when I go back, it's just easier to see everything and study it very quickly. So this was my anatomy notebook, and I really loved just drawing everything out. So I had that notebook. And then I also even had another notebook that I had started at the beginning of this semester because I like having these notebooks and having them all together. So this is how I would make my notes, and then sometimes I would go back and highlight once I had written out all my notes and I was studying them over again. And like I said, I just love using different colors and drawing pictures, and you know, that just helps me so much by drawing it all out to study, and I just love it so much. I'm just so proud of all these notes. So yeah, I loved doing this, and I spent a lot of time drawing all these notes, and it just helped me so much to study. So yeah, that was all of my handwritten notes, but as you can tell, it was a lot of paper. Let me show you guys. Okay, so I had this whole binder of all my notes from the fall, and I had my anatomy notes in here, and then I started some of my second semester notes in here. So it's a lot of paper, and I was running through the markers a lot. So I was kind of sick of using all that paper, and now I have all this paper that I have to store in my room. And I was going through the markers, and the markers are expensive, the ones that I like to use. So I decided about almost at the end of my first semester that I really wanted to get an iPad to do my notes. And majority of my class already had iPads. Like almost everyone has iPads to take their notes, and I just thought that I should get one because I can save paper, I can save money on buying the markers, and I can also share my notes so much easier with my friends, whereas like when it's on the paper, you know, I can't really share it that easily with my friends. One time I like photocopied all my notes and then I was able to share them, but that takes a little bit more time rather than like when it's on my iPad and I can just send the notes very easily. So for Christmas, I asked for the Apple Pen or pencil. So this is the first generation pencil that I got, and I did have an old iPad which I didn't know at first wasn't going to work with the pencil. So then for a little bit, that's when I started continuing to write my notes for second semester in that notebook, and then eventually I was able to buy myself the iPad, and I just bought the cheapest one that I could get that was compatible with the pencil. And so I got the iPad 7th generation with 32 gigabytes, and it's Wi-Fi compatible. So that's the iPad that I got, and then I got this really cute case on Amazon, and what I like about this is that it also works as a stand, and it also has a nice little place that you can put your pencil. So I'm now using my iPad to do notes. I no longer use paper. I love my iPad so much. I feel like I'm saving so much paper and so much space because now I don't have like all these binders filled up with paper and all these notebooks. So I love using the iPad, and I highly recommend, if you can get an iPad or if you already have one, use it for your notes. But while I am in lecture and when I was going to lecture, I was using just my MacBook. So what I would do was I would download the lectures from Canvas, I would go to class, and I would sit in class and type my notes on my laptop, and I would type them onto the PowerPoint. And the reason why I used my Mac to type out the notes during lecture was because sometimes the professor will talk so fast, and I felt like if you're writing down what they're saying, you can't write fast enough to keep up with what they're saying. So that's why I like to use my Mac to take notes during lecture while the professor is talking. So I take my notes on the PowerPoint during lecture on my computer, and then after lecture, I will go to my iPad and I will take my notes, like the abbreviated, reviewed summary sheet of my notes from the lecture, on my iPad. And so I use Notability, and I love Notability so much. My friend told me about it once I got my iPad, and I'll just show you guys really quickly how I use it. Okay, so in my iPad, when I go to Notability, you can have all these different sections. So I have my tissue injury and host defense, neuroscience, cardio, and then GI. And then you can add subjects, and that's where I add my exams. So I have exam 1 here, and I have all my notes. And then I have exam 2 here, and I have all my notes. So I'm going to start my lecture 3 notes for you guys to show you guys how I take my notes. So I'm going to do new note, and then I'll click here and I'll write the new lecture. So for you guys, I will take notes on the 3rd lecture, so that's lecture 3, and it is on the physiology of digest and absorption. So I'm going to write that in here. Okay, and so once I write that, how I like to take my notes is I'll go to paper, and I use this grid, and this helps me keep the notes very organized. Okay, so now that I have the title, I'm going to zoom in, and I always like to do a written title on the actual notes so that when I do upload the notes, I have this title at the top of the notes. And I put like a little box around it just to keep it organized. And then I also like to write the subject. So this is GI, so I'll write GI, and then I also write which exam it is. So this is the 2nd exam, so I write exam 2. And that just helps me keep it organized. I did this when I was writing notes on paper, and it just helps keep things in order and keep it all organized. So then I like to pick a color that I'll use for all the headers of these notes. So I think that I'll pick this light green, and this will be the color of all my headers and all of the important things that I want to highlight. So the first thing I'll do is go to the lecture, and I will find the important lecture slides and start doing my notes. So I go to my slides and I see what is important for me to write down in my notes. So I'm going to start with this slide here, and it says Chemistry of Digestion, Hydrolysis. So I'm going to start by writing my title, and I'll write it right at the corner. So I like to start with the lines so I keep things straight. So I'll start my headers at this second column, and I'll start it right at the line here so that I keep things straight rather than slanted. So I write the title of the slide. And then I like to underline it to make it look pretty. Okay, so this slide has 3 different topics that it's going to talk about. So I'm going to keep the green, and I'll have my second kind of header, and it's going to say carbohydrates. And give it an underline. So now I'm finally going to write in some notes under this header. So I go back to black, and I'll write in what I think is important to know about carbohydrates. And you don't want to write every single thing that's written on the slide, because that will just take you forever to write everything out, and then there's really no point of having notes. So the point of the notes is to write down things that you think is important and take out the main topics, and rather than writing every single thing down. And in this way, when you're going back and studying from these notes, you can see what is important and just study those main things that will be on the exam. So I'll continue on with these notes, but I'll show you guys some notes that I've already taken to show you what my completed notes look like. So this was notes that I took on the very first lecture. And as you can see, I picked this pink color for my headers, and then I filled everything in with a grayish color rather than a black. And so when I'm finally done with all my notes, what I like to do is go back to the paper and make it blank again, and I feel like it looks so nice when it's like this again. And as you can see, I did put in some pictures from the lecture, and I love doing that and being able to write onto the picture. I think that's so fun to do. That's why I also love the iPad. I also have another picture here, and I think that's great to put in the pictures because, as I've said before, I'm a very visual person. So I like to have my notes on one side and then the picture on the other side. And yeah, this is what my finished notes look like. So I'm going to continue with my lecture 3 notes, but basically I just go through my lecture slides and I pick out the main topics that I think are important and I write them down, and then eventually when I go back through again, what I will do is I take the highlighter and things that I think will be very important for the exam, I'll, go in and highlight. And it's really fun because I also like to, maybe take some extra notes on the side, maybe like star this, say, okay, this is important, or maybe I'll go back in and underline things. So I love making my notes very pretty and very colorful. and it just makes studying so much more fun, I think. And it makes, because it's visual, it makes it easier to stay in my mind. And everyone studies differently though. So some people like to type up their notes. I personally like to write them. So everyone's different. But yeah, this is what my notes look like at the end. And I think they just look so pretty, and it makes me more motivated to study. So this is how I love to make my notes. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on how I take notes. Of course, everyone's going to study differently. Some people like to type out their notes. I personally like to write them out, and of course, sometimes I don't even have time to write them all out. So sometimes I'll take even more abbreviated notes and write them really quickly. But when I do have time, I love to make these nice handwritten notes, make them very visual, lots of colors, and that just helps me study, and it makes me more motivated to study because it looks so pretty, and I think it's a great way to study by writing things out and then just rereading your notes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe for more videos. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye!